The galactic community had always known about humans, ever since they'd discovered faster-than-light travel and first encountered the other species inhabiting the stars. The other races had quickly catalogued the humans as eccentric. The union of sentient species was known for being cautious, deliberative, and strategic. It was, after all, a delicate web of relationships that had maintained the relative peace of the galaxy. Each species had its quirks, but each could be relied upon to act in accordance with their known parameters. Each had a predictable logic, except, of course, for humans. For their size and physical characteristics, they were technically classified as a low-threat species. They weren't exceptionally large, fast, or durable. Their physiology seemed incredibly fragile, even by the standards of the more fragile species. Some of them needed an astounding 7 to 8 hours of unconsciousness per day just to function. They were vulnerable to environments that other species navigated easily. Radiation, low oxygen, varying temperatures, all could kill humans relatively easily. In short, they were a mystery. Weak yet thriving, fragile yet audacious. They defied categories. The Union had grown to accept these inconsistencies, however. What they hadn't realized, until an unprecedented chain of events, was the actual extent of human unpredictability. And what's more, the true depth of human tenacity. Chapter 1. The incident. It began innocently enough on the fringe planet of Sarin 7, a small temperate world where various Union species maintained research outposts. At the time, it was not a particularly notable planet, but it held some interesting mineral deposits, and the ecosystem was rich with undiscovered species. However, it was also home to a newly installed human outpost, placed there in response to a galactic initiative to spread species representation equally. It should have been a peaceful endeavor. But on day 47, the unexpected happened. A Quellan freighter went missing. It had last been seen entering Sarin VII's atmosphere, reporting minor engine issues. Union officials were baffled. Distress beacons were unheard of in this sector, and no ship had disappeared this way in decades. It sparked a galactic investigation, and soon the humans were heavily scrutinized. Union representatives convened with the humans on Sarin 7, intent on making their inquiry swift and formal. But the moment they stepped into the human outpost, a strange sour odor hit them, like seared metal and chemical fumes. The lead representative, a distinguished tremble named Glissac, wrinkled his nasal membranes in distaste. "What is that smell?" he asked, clutching at his translator device. One of the humans smiled. That's just from a little experiment we're doing in the lab. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe." The Quellan ambassador, a tentacled creature that thrived in Arctic temperatures, peered skeptically at the humans. "And what kind of experiment is that?" "A new energy source. Kind of volatile," the human said casually. "The first test was explosive. Nearly took the roof off the lab, but we made adjustments." "Explosive," hissed Glissac. "This is precisely what I was warned about." The human only shrugged. "Hey, you wanted innovation." Chapter 2. Procedo iritum. The Union officials left the outpost disturbed and returned to their ships to conduct a full investigation into the missing freighter. But the following morning, things took a turn. A nearby planetary defense system picked up signs of a distress beacon, one that had been set to silent mode, a feature only accessible to Union military personnel. The origin, deep within a mountain range about 30 miles from the human outpost. They assembled a small team of human and Union officers to investigate the site, hoping to locate the ship and its crew. They trekked across the forested plains and up the rocky terrain, encountering new flora and fauna along the way. The humans, curious and unflinching, collected samples, photographing every strange creature, some of which were easily lethal. One even stopped to pet a strange spider-like creature that released toxic spores. "Are you out of your mind?" shouted Glissac. The human scientist only chuckled, pocketing the specimen. "It's harmless if you know where to hold it." The Union officers exchanged glances. They had a growing suspicion that harmless was a subjective term to humans. As they neared the signal, the group started seeing signs of an abandoned campsite. Torn thermal blankets and discarded rations were scattered about. There was also evidence of conflict. Branches splintered, burnt patches of earth, and deep gouges in the rock walls. The beacon's signal grew stronger as they reached the entrance of an enormous cave. Inside, they found a horrific sight. The missing freighter was smashed against the rocky walls, half submerged in a thick blue-green fungus that emitted an eerie glow. But worse than the wreckage was the scene surrounding it. Scorch marks covered the ground, and strange metal canisters lay scattered. Then they saw the Quellan crew, or rather what was left of them. Bodies lay twisted and frozen in terror, limbs contorted at unnatural angles. What happened here?" gasped the Quellan officer. But the human scientist, his face calm and almost intrigued, moved closer to the canisters, squinting at the markings. "Those are human signatures," Glissac said, horrified. The human officer beside him leaned down, picking up a piece of the broken canister. "Not just human. These are military-grade canisters. Whatever happened here, this was our equipment. Why would you bring weapons to a research outpost?" demanded Glissac. The human officer looked up, his expression turned grim. "Because," he said, "we know the sort of things that happen out here." Chapter 3, The Fury of Saren 7. As they exited the cave, a rumble echoed across the mountain. The ground trembled beneath them, and a strange noise like hissing and snarling echoed from the shadows. A human engineer held up a scanner, her face draining of color. "Oh, we have a problem," she whispered, showing them the screen. "That fungus, it's alive, and it's very, very angry." Before anyone could respond, a wave of bioluminescent spores drifted down from the cave's ceiling. The Union officers began to panic, instinctively covering their faces, but the humans reached for their breathing masks and filters. "Put these on," barked the human scientist. "They'll filter out the spores." As the group suited up, they realized the spores weren't just floating passively. They moved with an eerie, coordinated intent, surrounding the group in a shimmering green haze. Then the fungus began to move. A tendril shot out, snaring one of the Union scientists who hadn't put his mask on fast enough. The fungal tendrils wrapped around him, and to everyone's horror began dragging him back toward the cave. "Cut it!" yelled the human officer, tossing a blade toward Glissac. The tremble hesitated, but the human's sharp gaze brooked no argument. Glissac cut the tendril free, but the severed pieces only sprouted new shoots, each one grasping toward fresh targets. "Run!" the human yelled, and the team took off down the mountainside, spores still in pursuit. The humans led the charge, every one of them bounding over rocks and roots with a terrifying precision, their faces grinning with the thrill of danger. "Insanity!" Glissac screamed as he ran, his hooves barely managing to keep pace. They made it to the plain just as the spores reached the edge of the mountain, but the humans had prepared something. They reached into their packs and scattered a strange white powder on the ground behind them. The spores halted, unable to cross the line. One of the human engineers gave a thumbs up, her breathing heavy. "Bleach," she panted, grinning. Turns out they hate bleach. Chapter 4, The Reckoning. The team returned to the Union base, haggard but alive. The Union officers watched the humans as if they were creatures from a nightmare, and for the first time, a realization dawned upon Glissac. To humans, survival wasn't just about endurance. It was about creativity, resilience, and most unsettlingly, willingness to adapt. Where other species saw terrifying unknowns, humans saw puzzles. Where others feared, humans innovated, survived, and somehow thrived. In the coming months, more fungal spores were found spreading, infecting other Union planets. The Union scrambled, but humans had developed anti-spore protocols before the Union could draft its first set of safety guidelines. At a Union Council meeting, Glissac made a recommendation that would forever change the Galactic Alliance. "The humans may be unpredictable, erratic, but they bring something invaluable to our Union," he said. "They are, in fact, essential." And from then on, the humans were called upon whenever threats loomed in unknown spaces, especially when the unimaginable was involved.